I was always a great admirer of Alfred Hitchcock, and to me, and I love suspense films, thrillers, and Brian showed that knack in Sisters, and he showed it in Obsession, and I think I love Obsession. It's one of my favorite pictures. But I think Brian, with each film, he would perfect his art more and more. By the time we did Blowout together, I thought he was at the top of his arc, and two great things. Brian and I, we had two wonderful experiences together, Obsession and Dressed to Kill. So now we were looking for a third film, and he gave me several properties that he liked and stories, and one day, and I kept saying, well, this, I can see why you like them, but there's got to be another film. I mean, I want to see something that goes beyond, or more exciting, and So anyway, one day he brought me this, I think it was 3 or 4, maybe 5-page outline of a story he wrote, which was called Special Effects at the time. And I read this, and it was just a paragraph of each scene, a short outline of each scene. And I read it. And I said, Brian, this is what is that? I mean, I like that outline. Tell me more about it. He said, well, it's an outline I've had for a while, and I used it in a contest for some screenwriters and things, and they won. Some guy wrote a screenplay, and we gave him a small prize, and he said, it's a film I've been thinking about. And I said, well, I think more than that. I think this ought to be your next film. And he gave me Casualties of Wars and Body Double and several other movies, probably all interesting. But I said, no, the one I like the most is this 7 pages. And so he said to me, George, we just finished a lot of hard work. I don't want to sit down and write a screenplay now. I have to write a whole screenplay for this. I said, yeah, I know, but I think this can be terrific, and I'm really excited about it. And I said, I'll tell you what, if I could get you the financing for this film, a pay-or-play deal, where not just for the script, but the money to make the movie on these 7 pages, would you agree to make the movie and write the screenplay? He said, George, you can't do that. I said, Brian, if I get you the money to make this movie on the 7 pages, will you agree to write the film and direct the film so we could have another experience like the previous 2? He said, if you get the money, I'll make the film. So then there was a new head of American International Pictures. His name was Raphael Etkes, right, who came over from Universal Pictures at MC. I knew him for years. We worked together at William Morris Agency before I had my own independent agency. And they were very happy with the success of Dressed to Kill. And I said, do you want to make another deal with Brian? And they said, yes, of course. I said, well, read these 7 pages. So I said, they're good, but I want to see the screenplay. And I said, well, you'll either see the movie, you can see the movie, but you can't see the screenplay. He said, what do you mean we can't see the screenplay? I said, well, we'll send you the screenplay, but after you agree to make the movie. They said, George, we've never done anything close to that. I said, well, every studio in town wants Brian De Palma's next picture. I'm offering it to you. Now, at the time, we made Dressed to Kill for $6 million. We made Obsession, I think, for $1.5 million or $2 million. And I said, so this movie will be $10 million. Who's going to be in it? I said, I have no idea. He said, you're crazy. I said, no. I said, I'm going to go see Jeff Katzenberg over at Paramount right after this meeting. So let me know by tomorrow whether you want to make this deal. And he screamed and hollered, and said very affectionate, profane things. And I left, and when I got back to my office, there was a phone call from Raphael Eckes. He said, "Son of a bitch, we're going to make the deal." And that's how the Blowout was born. Now, Brian made, a few pictures with Nancy Allen. He just had her in Dressed to Kill, and he didn't want to be a director directing his wife all the time. And he wanted to work with other people, too. And so he told me about some of the other ladies he wanted to play this part, now that we had the money to make the film. And he just told me, each lady he told me, I said, "Well, she's pretty good. I don't know if she's the best." And, "Well, you call Mike Ovitz and make a deal for this actress or the other actress." And, I said, "Well, I don't know. We ought to keep looking, Brian." And one day, he told me he was also sending the script to John Travolta. So I said, "Great, if he does it." I said, "We'll have to find more money if he wants to do it." So next thing you know, we're in Philadelphia location. He calls me, I don't know, 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning. George, I just got a call from John Travolta in Paris. He wants to do the movie." I said, "Oh my God, how am I going to pull this off?" In those days, he was getting half the budget, $3 million or more, right? Which in those days was a lot of money. So I said, "Oh God." So it's a blessing, but it's a problem. So I said, "Okay, Brian, He call his lawyer, So I said, "Okay, Brian, I'll call his lawyer." So anyway, we went to work, and we got the extra money. And so we're supposed to have dinner with John at the Regency Hotel. And we're sitting there, and, we haven't made a deal for the actress yet. And John says, and Brian keeps telling me, "Go find out about making this deal with that actress. Or if you can make the deal, George, make the deal with this actress or the other actress." So I said, "Yeah," but I kept stalling because I wasn't happy, right? So as we sit down with Brian and John and his manager, we're sitting down and the waiters are serving the food, right? In my suite, we're having dinner, right? John leans over the table and says, "Brian, Nancy's going to be great in this part." And Brian says, "John, please forgive me. There's something I had to tell George, and I got to tell him right away," which I forgot. The excuse me for a moment was we stepped out of the room, and we went out in the hallway. He said, "Did you close the deal for the other actress?" I said, "No." He said, "Thank God." Nancy was now in the movie. About the title, what Blowout refers to is that, the clue for solving the murder is the blowout of a tire. So where Antonioni's blow up was the blowing up of a picture to solve the crime, Brian was now going to solve a crime with sound. And that to me was a difference in tone and attitude that was a whole different exploration of a crime story, as Blowout was a crime story. But there's other dimensions that he brought in. The political dimension, you can compare it to certain political events that occurred in America, for example. I mean, there was so much more to it. I think it had more moving parts than Blow Up. The approach, for the heart of the movie, which is the solving of the crime, was by a different sense, the sense of sound, the sense of vision. Movies, I always remember back to it. I was involved with Bob Altman in the making of MASH. I represented him and Ring Lardner Jr. and helped put the film together. Pauline Kael said, something about sight, and Brian De Palma is a master of sight and sound, because the pictures were good and his soundtracks with all the talking. So sound is very important in a movie. And Brian's desire to let the pictures talk a lot, the sound and the music and the sound effects become very important. Some of it was a new experience for me. It was the first time I ever made a movie featuring the Owls. But all that was the kind of symbolism that made the picture fascinating. And I thought that was extremely clever. I liked it a lot. It was Brian's desire after we shot the museum sequence in Philadelphia and Dressed to Kill, you know, because we could have shot Blowout in New York. He said, why don't we go to Philadelphia because, you know, it have a different feel, a different texture. We both grew up in Philadelphia, and so we knew Philadelphia quite well, and you know, using the Mummers Parade, which is every New Year's, is a ritual every New Year's. In Philadelphia, they have this huge Mummers Parade, which goes on from early in the morning till mid-afternoon or longer, right? Brian and Vilmos used it in the film spectacularly, and the chase sequence and all that, and it was just a very exciting visual and exciting part of the movie. And the so-called, you know, founding of the American Revolution and the American democracy was in Philadelphia. So all those visuals, you know, enriched the story because it was good marriage, you know, like a good counterpoint and marriage to the political aspects of the story. So no, I thought it was very exciting, the idea of going back. And until I had several experiences like people I went to school with and I hadn't seen in 20 years, 30 years, say, hey, George. And I'd look at them with a blank stare. They say, don't you remember me? We were in the 10th grade together. And they were very disappointed. I couldn't remember 30 years later. But it was a great experience. He wanted to shoot the stream where the car was going to go into, in the famous Fairmount Park or Wissahickon Park. It's all the same. And when we finally checked it out, the water wasn't deep enough to cover the car. So we thought it would be simple to dam up the creek so the water would be deeper for the shot. And the dam kept breaking. And then they said, well, we'll dig lower. And they found out there was granite down there. They couldn't dig lower. I don't know how we got through this. And this just dragged on. But eventually they dammed up the creek and they took the shot. But it was like a nightmare until we could bury the car underwater. So that was part of it. And then, you know, we didn't want to use, you know, how many times did you want to take that shot? So we had multiple cameras to cover the shot when the car crashed in the water. And it was awfully cold. The weather was unusually cold for Philadelphia at that time. And those poor guys that had a double for John in underwater shot diving into that cold water. I mean, there were lots of obstacles, but we overcame them all. I remember now that Brian was finishing up the editing, and I was in Cannes on company business because we had films to sell and other things to do, and I was staying at the Majestic. I had a nice suite with a nice terrace, and the man that ran Technicolor, where the film was being processed and everything, was a close friend of mine. And he called me up in the morning. He says, I have to see you. And I said, 8 o'clock in the morning. I come out all night drinking this good French wine, eating all this wonderful French food. What are you calling me at 8 o'clock in the morning for? He said, George, this is serious. I said, come on, Jay, what is it? Tell me on the telephone. I don't want to tell you on the telephone. He says, no, you got to tell me. He said, I don't want to tell you on the telephone. I said, okay, come on over. So he came over, and he said, 2 reels of your film were stolen. I said, where's the punchline? He said, what? I said, this has got to be a joke, right? What's the joke, Jay? He says, there's no joke. I said, what do you do when 2 reels of your film is stolen? Which 2 reels? So I said, I got to call Brian and Paul Hirsch. Right? Which 2 reels? They said, well, George, we've been on this already. I said, oh, that's good, I guess. You know, well, what do you mean you've been on it? What are we going to do? He said, well, the 2 reels were John Travolta in the car, his point of view, so Travolta's not in it. And the rest of it was the shots with the horses going up to City Hall and the other. And there's the car from the rear, but there's no Travolta shots. So we can get a double and a stuntman in the car, and we can reshoot that whole thing. We got it worked out. It'll take us a few weeks. Freddie's here, and he's budgeting it. I talked to the lawyers at the studio already, and they're going to get an okay from the insurance company. And anyway, that's what happened. So they, what the story was that somebody broke into the truck when they left the truck and just stuck their hand in and got 2 reels. We put out an offer of $250,000 for anybody who would find the 2 reels, but they never showed up. And they reshot that section because we had to make a date at the end of July or something, And there were so many good films at that time, I wish I missed it. I missed that date. But that was the story. Now, and then my friend detective had told me that they now have 2 men on the truck. Whenever they go for a delivery or a pickup, they have 2 men on the truck. So one man stays in the truck as the other man goes in. I said, well, a little late now. Everyone has different points of view about films, and Brian and I agreed, almost on everything. There were a few things on Obsession we didn't agree with, where we changed the ending and we changed certain sequences that he, because of the incest implications. And he was very cooperative that way. And the end of Dress to Kill changed from, because he came up with a better concept. I always felt that the girl should be saved in Blowout and they should go see Sugar Babies, but his view was different. And the film still has many admirers that way. But I was a firm believer in the Hitchcock basic concept. You meet 2 people you like, they get into jeopardy, and you root for them to extricate themselves safely. Well, it's not true in every Hitchcock picture, because in Vertigo, she didn't extricate herself safely. Yeah, but working with Brian was great that way, because usually when we had a problem, he always had a terrific way to solve it. And I can't say that about every director. I'm afraid that, I will forever be associated with Brian De Palma, because everyone I meet and talk to, and so many people love these 3 films. So I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of my association with Brian.